This no Haaland team I started with last season brought me to second in the world in Game Week 20. Today I'll discuss some of the strategy that goes into it. Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Shai. Today we'll run through my Game Week 1 team I started with last season. I decided to make this video because I'm starting to see a lot of no Haaland drafts. And since I went 30 game weeks and spent a lot of time in the top 1k last season, I said I'd run through a video. So we'll run through a quick Game Week 1 team also that could be very similar to that of last season. And we'll also talk about some of the strategy like captaincy and what to expect throughout the season. So if you're going no Haaland, this is maybe for you. I just like to say I don't encourage to go with no Haaland. It is a risky move and you have to get quite lucky like I did last season for it to pay off. So let's get into it. So this is the team. For anyone that's listening, on goal is Johnston, 3 at the back, Akanji, Trent, Udogie, 5 in the middle, Salah, Maddison, Bruno, Saka and Eze. And the 2 up front, Darwin and João Pedro, with a bench of Turner, Watkins, Kabori and Baldock. So game week 1, I captained Eze. I went a bit risky, and I suppose this was a season where everyone started with Haaland. His fixtures were just way more favourable, and I think everyone in the game owned him. I remember at the start of the season, a lot of my friends taking the mickey out of me for not owning Haaland after doing so well. But I kind of stuck, as you'll see, on what I believed and some of the strategy that I wanted to do. In game week 1, Haaland got a brace and everyone captained him. So after game week 1, that led me to a rank of, I think 6.2 million after game week 1. So that was absolutely terrible. But we somehow turned things around. And I think that's just one of the expectations you need when you go against someone so big like Haaland. What makes Haaland so good is that everyone captains him in some of the easier games, like specifically the bottom 3. And in game week 4, it was the exact same when he got a hat-trick. But fortunately, I matched that with a Son hat-trick. And I'll bring up graphics so you can see how well Haaland done at the start of the season, and also what I done to mirror him in game week 3 and 4. So I suppose a large part of the strategy is you need to get your captaincy right. And if you don't have Haaland and he's playing the likes of Ipswich this season, you could be in trouble like in game week 2. But you just need to take it on the chin. And you have to hope over the space of 5 to 10 game weeks that it works out in your favour. So I'll bring up my game week 3 and 4 team for last season. And I suppose it just kind of shows that if Haaland doesn't do well, you will absolutely fly up the ranks if your team does. And a lot of the weeks, you'll obviously, because you don't have Haaland, you'll be going against the regular captaincy. You can expect most weeks that Haaland will be over 100 and maybe 20% EO, even against some of the better teams, the top 6 teams. But going with a different captaincy is also fun. So I suppose I'll get into why I kind of started the season without him. I just thought there was a gap, and a lot of the players that I started with here could have done much better with the money. I think he started last season 14 mil. So we'll bring back up our game week 1 team. As you can see, it's a fairly premium-ish defense. Udogie came in at 4.5, I think, and Akanji was 5, and Trent was maybe 8. I can't really remember his price, but definitely Trent was more expensive. And then if you look at the midfield, it's absolutely stacked. Salah, Maddison, Bruno, Saka, Eze. And then the rotation with the strikers. I just feel like I like to make a team with a bit of depth at the start of the season. It leaves you for more favourable fixtures. So for the likes of Watkins, that was on my bench in game week 1, I could sub him out for João Pedro if Pedro was playing someone a bit better. And also at the start of the season, with a lot of new managers and people going with different tactics, sometimes your player will just be benched, and that's just the way it is. So I chose a lot of players that I felt were nailed. So the likes of Maddison, Bruno, Saka, Eze and Salah, these are all players that I really thought would start. And then with the likes of Darwin and João Pedro, they might have been benched, so it was good to have an extra player to kind of rotate. So if you look at the kind of setup of the team, obviously it has no Haaland, but it has 3 kind of mid-ish price range strikers. So I think Darwin was maybe 8 million and Watkins was near enough the same. And then João Pedro, who was a cheap budget enabler. So if we go and actually make this team for this season, and I'll show you some of the changes that I probably make to mirror a similar template to it. So let's get into that. So this is pretty much the exact team I started with last season. But as you can see, we're 1.5 million short. And there is a few changes that I'd make anyway in terms of fixtures. So what I would do firstly is, I feel like this season's Watkins is probably Isaac. I mean, first of all, Isaac is phenomenal striker anyway. I think Watkins, you could definitely go Watkins. It's just we're trying to fit a budget here, so I'd probably move him on. And also, I feel like Isaac is probably better for the money. If Watkins is on penalties, he's unreal, don't get me wrong. But I just prefer Isaac in that spot. I don't think I'd change Darwin. I suppose it really depends on what happens in pre-season. A lot of last season, Darwin was actually benched towards the start of the season. And I'm unsure if it'll happen this season, but it'll be interesting to see what Arne Slot does. I think it's also, it benefits him that he can play left wing and striker. So one person I'd probably move on, because we don't know if he's fit, is João Pedro. And I'd put in Chris Wood. For me, Chris Wood is a phenomenal striker. You can guarantee he gets at least 10 goals every season. And for 6 million, I feel like it's a fair price. He's not on penalties, but he's after starting pre-season fairly strong. So I think I would have him. And I suppose we will have to see what happens with Toyo Owani. So if we go to our defence, I think I'd definitely change Johnston. I'd probably go to a Sanchez. I feel like Sanchez is really good value this season. So if we pop him in there, and he plays against City at home, which is not an ideal fixture, but I think, which we'll get into now, if we have spare money, we'll add another rotating goalkeeper. I am a fan of that. So if we go into our defence, I would definitely swap Akanji for Guardiola. I just feel like this season Guardiola is way better value, and now we know he's probably nailed and he's almost playing left wing. I feel like he's a no-brainer. What to do with Udogie is interesting. I know he came back from surgery and he is back in training, but I want to see if he's going to start the season. If he's not, he can be easily changed to a show, but I am happy to start with a Spurs player or a Spurs defender this season. And for our two enablers, last season I had Kabore and Baldock. Baldock did get minutes, but Sheffield were woeful. And Kabore, I think they had a double game week near the start of the season, so that's why I had him. This year, I'd probably just have Johnson. Johnson for Ipswich, he plays at right back and he's likely to start most games. And for the other defender, I'm not quite sure yet, but I'm just happy to put the likes of Lemina just for a filler spot for now. So in the midfield, we have 2 million to make up. We have Saka, Eze, Salah, Fernandes and Maddison. And what I'd probably do is either do Saka to Son, and that is to get the better fixtures, or you could keep Saka, which is also not bad. Saka's on penalties, of course, and some free kicks. But I think what I'd do is I would do Maddison to Brennan Johnson. I feel like Johnson could have a very, very good season this season. Why can't I find Johnson? There he is. And I would probably do Saka to Son, but again, like I said, there's no issue keeping him. I'm just having a look at this now, and we've 1 million to make up. So I suppose the other slot for that is Bruno, and I feel like who could be a very good value player this season is Nkunku. And I think I'll definitely start with him. So if you look at this, how this team is set up for Game Week 1, you'd start with a 3 at the back of Trent, Guardiola, Udogie, 4 in the middle, Eze, Salah, Johnson and Saka, and then your 3 up top, Darwin, Isaac, Wood. So I suppose we could make this a bit better if we add a rotating goalkeeper. So who do we have? 4.5 million ideally. I would go Verbergen, but I think he's injured. How about we actually just put in, we'll put back in who we had there, and we'll upgrade one of the defenders, I'd say. Because that leaves us with how much? 5 million for a defender. And I'd probably just go for Shaw. I really like a Shaw or Martinez. I just feel like they're good value. Martinez is 4.5. And you could just slot him in for if you have a bad fixture for an Udogie. I know you play Arsenal fairly early on, and you can sub Martinez in. But yeah, that's probably what I would go with near the start of the season. I have 0.5 million to put in a 4.5 keeper, but I don't like any of the options that are there. So maybe you want to keep the 0.5 to go for an 8 million striker. But yeah, I do like this. You have Saka, who's on penalties, Eze and Salah, who are also on penalties, and you have Isaac, and I feel like that is a fairly solid team. So a few things to keep in mind with no Haaland. He is going to score a lot of goals and you are going to get burned. Again, I don't advise going with no Haaland. It's just something that I done and I feel like it's very enjoyable to do. But then again, I feel like at 15 million, he is maybe fairly priced this season compared to last. The only thing is, I would say a lot of people would probably be on him if he started the season against Ipswich rather than game week 2. So I feel like it's almost like people don't realise how good his fixtures are. But we'll see. So if you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments what you think. Be sure, if you want to support me, to like, comment and subscribe. And I will see you in the next.